One, one, two. Check me out right here, yo. Turn the track up.
Greetings and welcome to the 2018 Gridiron Dynasty preseason rankings. We are 24 hours from NFL football action and we are ready to get started. So let's get right into it and break down the top 10 teams entering the preseason based on our draft results. First off, we're going to start with number 1, bad seeds. And man, was this a bad boy in the draft room. So we have draft bad seeds as the clear number 1 and simple. First thing we see is this team is loaded. We love the talent breakdown across the board. You have Drew Brees at QB with Matt Ryan backing him up. We love the receiver combination of AJ Green, Keenan Allen, and Robert Woods. And how can you possibly fault Travis Kelce at tight end? This team has a lot of weapons, a lot of versatility, and can beat you in many different ways. The next thing we like to see is the great value picks. AJ Green in the 3rd round is almost criminal. Travis Kelce was pretty much an expert consensus 2nd round pick, and bad seeds got him in the 4th. Drew Brees in the 6th is unheard of. He had an off year last year as the Saints shifted to a more run-oriented offense, but he can still ball out. And John Brown is a mega sleeper in the 10th round. And on top of it, given the Le'Veon Bell controversy, which we'll get to in a moment, bad seeds had the foresight to draft John Connor in the 13th round. This was a clinic on how you draft on draft night. So excellent work all around the board. We like to see Tariq Cohen, who was a flash in the pan last year. He kind of came out of the gate hot, but then slowed down. It's going to be interesting to see. That was an interesting pick. He spent a 5th round pick on him. It'll be interesting to see what Tariq can do. And will Le'Veon ever show up? It seemed like Le'Veon was just going to show up, a week before the first season, as these star players do during a holdout. But now it might be a multi-week situation. So definitely something to monitor. But this team still holds the number 1 spot. Moving on to number 2, we have P Unit. Again, what we see here is another team that isn't a super explosive team when you look at the roster, but great talent across the board. At every position, we see Phillip Rivers at QB, Peyton Barber, very underrated. We'll get to him in a second, and Christian McCaffrey at RB. The receivers are all very solid. This team has very good talent across the board. We also like the depth at receiver. Josh Gordon on the bench. The bird is landed, to quote the great Hugh Jackson. It's going to be very interesting to see what Josh Gordon does this year. Obviously, already having Odell Beckham, Will Fuller, and Jordy Nelson, the unit could really blow up at the receiver position if Josh Gordon can meet even 80% of the potential and the hype that he brings to the table. Also interesting in the strategy was the double D. This team is defense heavy with the Jags, last year's top defense, at least in real football, not in fantasy, but definitely a top 3 defense, and the Steelers, who I expect to be a very, very good defense this year. So they are defense heavy. In fact, I believe the Jags were selected in the 8th round. And finally, the barbershop. Don't sleep on Peyton Barber. This guy is going to be probably a top 10 RB this year. Ronald Jones, the rookie brought in, is trash. He will not see the field. Peyton Barber is basically a bell cow workhorse, and that was an excellent pick. And watch out for young Jeezy. Greg Zuerlein is a freak at the kicking position, so big potential there for the number 2 team. Moving on to number 3. In the 3 spot, we have Team DNA. Again, what we see here is another well-balanced team at every position. You have the GOAT, Tom Brady at QB, David Johnson back for more. I mean, the guy only suffered a broken wrist. His legs are fine. He will probably end up as the number 1 RB when it's all said and done this year. He said his stated goal is to get 2,000 yards, so we like that. Tyreek Hill. Let's talk about Tyreek Hill. He was the number 1 receiver last year in fantasy in our scoring system. He is a big play waiting to happen. He definitely benefits from a scoring system like ours. We also want to say watch out for Galladay's season. Kenny Galladay, for those who don't know, is now starting for the Detroit Lions. So he is really moving from sleeper to breakout. I anticipate big things from him this year. of course, and then Chris Godwin, who many fantasy experts have spoken about this year as a potential breakout sleeper. Getting him at round 12 is a great value. Moving on to number 4. In the 4 spot, we have the champion, the Inglorious Bastards. And again, a great job all around by the champ. All around talent. We see the RB position, we have Jordan Howard, Jay Ajayi. Again, these guys don't overwhelm you, but what we like to see in a draft, especially at the RB position, is opportunity and volume. They're going to be high volume, multi-touch workhorses for their teams respectively. Also, at the receiver position, you have Antonio Brown, Jarvis Landry, Emmanuel Sanders. This is a great combination. Jarvis Landry is going to ball. The Cleveland Browns are a different team this year. Tyrod Taylor is a great quarterback. He's probably going to throw more passes than he's ever thrown in a season. So I really like Jarvis Landry to keep up that 100-plus catch pace. Emmanuel Sanders still underrated. And of course, Gronk, who is now basically Inglorious Bastards requirement on draft night. So, and we also love Kenny Stills in round 12. Devontae Parker is garbage. Kenny Stills basically has the receiving spot to himself in Miami, so great pick. Why this team picked 2 tight ends, inexplicable, but I guess because Gronkowski and Jordan Reed both get hurt all the time, might as well go with 2. In the 5 spot, we have DOD. The director's Devastation really wrote a good screenplay, a good script for this one. I want to talk about the unsung heroes. Now, this roster is a very interesting roster because the names on this roster are not very scary at all. But do not sleep on this team. So you have players like Alex Collins, Nelson Aguilar, Isaiah Crowell, even Alex Smith. These guys are all going to outperform their ADP this year. Alex Smith last year was a top 10 QB, top 6 in our scoring system. He brings running to the table. He's in a very aggressive Washington offense that throws a lot. He is a deep ball thrower, contrary to popular belief. He is a sleeper quarterback. Nelson Aguilar is the number 1 receiver in Philly because Alshon Jeffrey is always hurt. Additionally, Alex Collins balled out in the close of the season. So this team has a lot of sleeper talent. We'd like to see it. Josh Doctson is another player on that Washington team who could really be a red zone threat, and DOD got him in round 10. Good job all around. We see, of course, Gostowski at the kicking position, Rams D, another way too early nutso pick on defense, but should pay off since now they have Ndamukong Suh. They got Aaron Donald in tow, signed, gave him his money, so expect some good things from this team. Moving on to the 6th spot. In the 6th spot, we have Sugar Graham. Sugar Graham vacating the basement, vacating the cellar. Sugar Graham in the mix, a viable team this year. Good job, Sugar. Yeah, like the team here, like the moves here. Solid, not spectacular, but definitely solid. The big question here, of course, you have Aaron Rodgers kicking things off in round 1. Obviously going to play well this year. Aaron Rodgers, an elite QB. The question here, though, I think is, will the RBs perform? That's a big question. What are the RBs going to do on this team? Lamar Miller has been generally trash, although he played much better when Deshaun Watson was healthy. Royce Freeman is a rookie, highly touted out in Denver, but still unproven. A lot of questions here at the RB position, so it's a little bit suspect. At the receiver position, we love the selection of Michael Gallup, big time sleeper. He might be the top receiver for the Dallas Cowboys this year. And will probably be starting more than Sammy Watkins for Sugar, since Sammy Watkins is pretty much washed up at this point. Julio Jones, Demaryius Thomas make for a nice rounding it out. But this team has some questions going forward, but there's enough here to make this team a contender as the season progresses. In the number 7 spot, right on Sugar's heel, is Team Fabulous. This team here, we see here, it's all about opportunity in fantasy, and we like the opportunity of the players on this roster. You have Doug Baldwin. You know, Seattle is a very different team this year. They don't have the defense they had before, and they certainly don't have the offensive weapons. Jimmy Graham is gone. Paul Richardson gone. You know, the running backs are basically all rookies and second-year players. Doug Baldwin is the consistent theme there as a weapon for Russell Wilson to use, and should get a ton of targets this year provided he can stay healthy. Similarly, we have Melvin Gordon, who's going to get a ton of carries and receptions in San Diego. Adam Thielen. These are target hogs. We like target hogs in fantasy. We want target and touch hogs in fantasy. This team has a good amount of them, and we love the selection of Jay Crowder in round 12. So, very solid job by Team Fab in the 7th spot. Big Ben, questionable though. We have to question Big Ben as your only quarterback. We know Big Ben is garbage on the road, so we don't really know how that's going to work out. And this team has no backup QB. So some issues could be in store for Team Fabulous. Moving on, we get to in the 8th spot, the boss of bosses. Now, right here out of the gate, we have to say the boss of bosses in the first 2 rounds. What a 1-2 punch at running back when you have Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook. That is a devastating 1-2 punch, and certainly as far as starting RBs, the top combo in the league this year. You know, and the boss is very comfortable with that. The boss loves having that RB stable straightened out. Great combo. Where we see it more shaky is at the receiving position. Stephon Diggs, who's the real number 1 receiver on this team out of Fitzgerald, Stephon Diggs, and Chris Hogan? It's not really clear. The tight end position is super shaky. Tyler Eifert is made of glass. This cat barely ever touches the field. Jared Goff is uninspiring at QB, and you know, there's definitely some question marks, and the bench is thin. Not much there on the bench either with Rashard Matthews. Alshon Jeffrey is just basically a healthcare liability. So the boss, you know, solid, but this team doesn't have the roster right now to hang with the big boys. Which takes us to number 9. At number 9, we have Buffett's Brawlers. And the theme here, what we see here is the RB stable. You know, Zeke Elliott, Keon Drake. This team, of course, was the first team to be bit by the injury bug, as Jerick McKinnon, who was a suspect signing for San Francisco to begin with, tore his ACL out for the year. Can he bounce back? Buffett went and dropped a lot of guap. We like to see that aggressive GM play to get Alf Morris his backup. Also picked up Boston Scott. Why not? Who's Boston Scott? Never heard of him. Never seen him on the field. But why not drop some guap on Boston Scott while we're at it? You know, nothing like a little preseason desperation. So we've seen that. This team is already shaky. Njoku's unproven. A lot of unproven players on this roster. It's gonna be an uphill battle. Allen Robinson is, you know, pretty much washed at this point. So not expecting too much from this squad. And again, no backup QB. And at 10, we have the Black Ops, yours truly. So, you know, the thing here with the Black Ops this year is that it's just all unproven talent. Deshaun Watson, we all know what he did for that short 5-game run. He was spectacular. He was, you know, all world. But can he do it again? Has he been schemed? We'll find out. Saquon Barkley basically played, you know, 1 series in preseason. That's his NFL resume, completely unproven. Joe Mixon got playing time last year and didn't really do much with it. Marquise Goodwin, similarly, Geronimo Allison. These guys are unproven outside of Michael Thomas. Trey Burton was a backup. There's a lot of question marks on this roster, and so that's why we have to come down and move this team down to the 10 spot. So as we come to a close here, we're just going to talk about some good picks, some suspect picks, some value, and some value that was lacking. So we're going to go through some rounds and just starting in round 6 with some picks that were really some good values. So in round 6, some good value picks that we saw here were definitely Inglourious Basterds getting Emmanuel Sanders in round 6. Bad Seeds getting Drew Brees in the 6th round. And GT Dons who doesn't even make the cut for the top 10. But Robbie Anderson is extremely underrated. And even with rookie quarterback Sam Darnold, will probably still ball out and get a ton of targets because the Jets are going to be really bad this year. Round 7, we'd like seeing Carlos Hyde is looking unstoppable right now in Cleveland. And so, again, Cleveland is going to be good this year. So that was a good pick in round 7 by yours truly. Definitely DOD getting Nelson Aguilar. And look at the boss picking up Mark Ingram in round 7, who's only going to miss 4 games. I mean, this guy scored 12 touchdowns last year and had a G on the ground. So to get him in round 7, not bad at all. Round 8, love to see, what do we see here? Oh, again, Seeds, Robert Woods, super underrated. Very good pick in round 8. Moving to round 9. Not much here in terms of phenomenal picks, but we're going to have to give it to Sugar from Michael Gallup. Round 10, P Unit definitely hit the jackpot getting Matt Breida, who probably get 200 touches now that McKinnon's out in San Francisco. Also like to see Josh Doxson by DOD in round 10. And definitely Seeds getting John Brown. Buffett's Brawl is getting Sterling Shepard, who could have a phenomenal year if the Giants offense can really get it clicking. In round 11, any trophies to hand out here? Let's see here. Gotta give it to Inglourious Bastards. Jordan Reed is super brittle, but I mean, he should not be going in the 11th round. Round 12, of course, Inglourious Bastards getting Kenny Stills and DNA Chris Godwin. Round 13, who are we going to give it up to? Love Seeds getting again Sonny Michel. Latavius Murray going to DOD in the 13th round. Very interesting because Latavius could be a touchdown vulture this year. And also as a flyer, Paul Richardson, who might ball out in Washington. And finally in 14 and 15, we're looking for some deep value. We got to give the team fabulous. Round 14, Keelan Cole, excellent pick. And now on to some of the worst picks of the night. This is very easy. We're going to look right at Job here. The worst pick of the night, round 8, Marquise Lee. It was announced well in advance, 24 hours before draft night, that Marquise Lee had a devastating knee injury that required him being carted off the field. And he was attended to by medical staff immediately. And of course, we now know he tore his ACLs out for the season. But of course, did Job know that? No, he went ahead and picked him anyway in the 8th round. Wasted pick. He then came back in 9 and took Calvin Ridley. Garbage. Let's move on for Job because it didn't end there. The party did not even end. It just continued. Devontae Parker, round 12, injured. Trash. Texans D, one of the worst Ds in fantasy last year. In round 13, inexplicable. And then we have, of course, Hayden Hurst in 14, who broke his foot and is out for at least a month minimum. Atrocious drafting, clear lack of research, just ignorance in the war room and pure confusion. So so that wraps up our draft recap. We hope everyone enjoyed it. Preseason rankings are done. Let's get on the field. Let's get it started. Hope you enjoy the action this weekend, and I will see you on the grid.